finish off 2022 with a bang. First, we'd like to thank everyone as a record number of you took advantage of our Thanksgiving 7-day special. We hope you enjoyed the convenience of getting your favorite handicappers plays daily during the hectic holiday weekend. And we also know that December can be a frenzied month with the holidays and all the sports in play. In the spirit of the season and due to the success of the Thanksgiving special, we are now offering a rest of the calendar year special to get every NFL, college bowl game, NBA, NHL, or any other sport your favorite handicapper releases through December 31st for only $1.99. The early bird really does catch the worm for this special as it starts the day you sign up. No coupon is needed, and you pay only $1.99 today or pay $1.99 in a few days. The choice is simple. Let's have a great ending to 2022.
Happy Friday, everybody. Friday starts the weekend, and it also starts the profits for the people who watch the show. I'm your host, Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. Joining me, as always, Andy Lang of WagerTalk.com and Andrew McGinnis. And as we always do on the show, we got a bunch of football games we'll break down for you. We'll take a look at last night's disaster, and we've got some other side topics, not including the WNBA, that we will discuss on the show today. So let's start things off. Andy, last night, I went to bed in the third quarter, didn't realize the Rams won, didn't think they had a chance to win. So tell us your thoughts on Thursday Night Football and anything you've got so far for the weekend.
Yeah, interesting game. I actually did stay up to watch the end of this game. I'm kind of glad I did so I could say I was there. But this Raiders team, they just struggle with putting teams away. It's like they just don't have that killer mentality to finish off the games. And if there's, to me, one stat that just really shows that, it's Devontae Adams had 3 catches for 71 yards. He started off early with a long pass, and it was pretty obvious the Rams just weren't going to be able to do much with him. I just don't know how you get this guy only 3 catches for 71 yards in a close game. So Raiders just continue to be really, really frustrating for Raiders fans. Lightning in a bottle for Baker. I was kind of glad to see that. You always like to see an underdog story, and that certainly was. I personally enjoyed seeing all of the Rams wide receivers that most people don't know get a chance to show off their stuff, and they've got a little bit of talent there. So I thought it was an entertaining game, but from a props betting perspective, I had no plays whatsoever. I'm glad I didn't because I'm not really sure what would have hit besides your incredible Daniel Carlson. That was an unbelievably fantastic call. Congratulations on that one. And what do I have this weekend? 5% play. We're 15-4 on these. We hit 3 5% plays last week, which is pretty incredible and something I'm proud of. That's up at WagerTalk.com. But again, great call on Carlson last night, Matt. That was a great one.
Yes, thank you, Andy. We gave that out on Bet On It as I tried to fill in for you as ably as I can. Andrew, thoughts on last night, and what do you have for us this weekend?
Well, I certainly agree as far as I know it's a prop show, but just like Andy said, if you're anyone's interested in playing the Raiders at all, really, I think they're just a really hard team to trust full game. You know, they're not a team that's short of making mistakes or giving the ball away. And to be completely honest with you guys, I really did not want to see Baker Mayfield do well. I'm not trying to sound like a hater, and I hate to be that guy, but I wanted to look at unders on all his props and take interception props and just bury the guy over the next few weeks if he does get the ball in his hand. But he actually looked okay slinging the ball out there, so it wasn't too bad. I actually passed yesterday with Thursday Night Football, but I will have a big slate on Sunday with NFL props. Those Thursdays, I just haven't done well with them this year as much. It's been hard for me to get a read on those games. So I just passed on it last night. But for me this weekend, it is a loaded weekend. We've got NHL on Saturday, a big slate that I'm already looking ahead for. Saturday is also containing a really, really strong UFC card. I'm excited to watch it. I have a few plays. One play I will give out today on the show that I gave out on Wager Talk today, just to make sure I give it out to our Prop It Up audience. And then again on Sunday, I've got one strong side play in the NFL so far and a few prop plays, of course, to give out, and always have that prop package going over at Wager Talk if anybody wants to grab it. And I always say for people like us especially, I think it's important for people to just grab a day pass on Sundays, Matt, because people will just get every single thing, not just the one NFL best bet, not just the prop package, not just the NHL or NBA or whatever it might be. you get that day pass and you get everything. I think that really works for all three of us.
Yeah, certainly agree on that. I went 1-1 in the props last night. I had the car over 1.5 passing touchdowns, didn't hit. And then I had the Tutu Atwell receiving yards over. And a lot of that was based off of Sean McVay saying that he regrets not getting Atwell the ball earlier. And sometimes the quotes and depending upon the head coach, I believed Sean McVay. And, of course, Atwell went over his number. I think we had like 50-something yards last night, had about 5 catches. So that's always something, and I know Teddy preaches that, and I know we've talked about that on this show, is reading coaches' quotes. And then I also learned apparently the Eagles were using Matt Collins wrong because apparently he's a running back. He's not a wide receiver. He had about 35, 40 yards rushing. The Raiders had 5 or 6 people running the ball last night. It was just a weird game plan all the way around from the Raiders. But that's what we took a look at from Thursday night. All right, let's take a look at the games on Sunday. Andy, you picked an interesting one. It's a divisional battle. Any chance we can get to discuss Russell Wilson, we certainly want to do so. What's your thoughts on this Chiefs-Broncos game?
Well, I kind of like betting on this Chiefs team because I think I've had a pretty decent read on them, and I think you can take an Andy Reid offense, and I think you can have a pretty good idea of what they're going to do. They're going to make it pretty simple, and they're going to exploit the weakness of the other team. So I started off looking at this game through the Broncos defense, and their pass defense is nothing short of incredible. They are number 2 against quarterbacks and number 1 against wide receivers. And I think this is a really good spot to take Patrick Mahomes on the under. His passing total is 271.5. And when you're going up against a defense in the secondary and a pass rush that is this good, and let's face it, the Chiefs do not have the Tyreek Hill that can take the top off of a defense like this. They don't have elite talent at the wide receiver. They've got Travis Kelce, but I think this is something that the Broncos are going to be able to handle. I think you're looking at a running game from the Chiefs. So I'm going to kind of attach 2 plays together, and that's Isaiah Pacheco over his rushing total and Patrick Mahomes under his passing total. So I'm looking at Mahomes under 271. He went under against the Bengals, and it's with Pacheco, I'm looking at his rushing total right now, and I got to be honest, I really liked what I've seen from Pacheco, just the eye test. I think he runs really hard, and he's rushed for over 60 yards the last 2 games, and one of those games was against the Bengals. That is a really, really good run defense with DJ Reader back. So I think Pacheco gets some good opportunities here. The Broncos are 20th against the run, so you're looking at a top 2 pass defense and a bottom 12 rush defense. So I think this is a Andy Reid special where he uses Pacheco and McKinnon as well. I know they're going to try and save McKinnon. They don't want to put him in harm's way. He's going to be really, really important to that playoff run. So I would be looking at those. And then I just think you have to play the Broncos under 17.5 points team total every week. They've only gone over this total twice this year. They've gone under this total in a couple of overtime games. They still couldn't get over 17.5 points. I think this is one of those you just keep playing every week. If they happen to go over this week, come back and play them even a little bit more next week because this offense has shown absolutely nothing. But I think for this one, Pacheco over his rushing total is going to be my favorite. Then maybe a little sprinkle on Patrick Mahomes, and then, of course, we're looking at Broncos under the team total.
Yeah, certainly. That Broncos team total under has been very nice, especially when you're getting that key number of 17.5. That's always a good one. All right, Andrew, you picked a fun one. Seahawks and the Panthers. Carolina coming off the bye week. You got Sam Darnold. You got Geno Smith here. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, my thoughts, there's a lot of injuries to look at, especially at the running back position, really for both teams to break down. I guess when I looked at kind of keys to victory, key to success, when I'm just handicapping the game overall, a lot of times I handicap the game and then I look at the props afterwards. I think that the key for success for the Panthers against the Seahawks team will definitely be to slow things down and just kind of drive the field on the ground. We see the Seahawks team, both teams are, I think, neck and neck, like 16th, 17th ranked in the league as far as rushing yards per game. But Seahawks rank 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. So I do think the Panthers will be running the ball pretty heavy. And I do think that Hubbard will be a guy that they use quite a bit. It seems to me like there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. just based on how a lot of guys around him are injured. And same thing with the Seahawks. I've talked about the Geno Smith pass completions prop quite a bit this season here on the show when I have talked about the Seahawks. But guys, with them being injured at the running back position as well, and even seeing some deep threat guys injured as well, and DK has really been having lingering injuries all year long, the short passes and even just Geno Smith's rushing yard prop has been unbelievable this year so far. Listen to this, guys. Geno Smith touchdown passes over has cashed in 10 of his last 12 games. Geno Smith has hit the completion yard prop in 9 of his last 11 games, and he's hit his rushing yards over in 7 of his last 9 games. To me, that is unbelievable. I think that, it's crazy to think. I mean, I know, Matt, you made that joke about how it's always interesting to break down a game when it has to do with Russell Wilson. Well, it's actually interesting without a sarcastic manner to talk about games with Geno Smith because he has been solid for them in a lot of different ways. But I think people should be very careful with the injuries here in this one. I do think Chuba Hubbard is a really good guy to watch out for this week. He's someone that's for your fantasy team for a little waiver wire pickup, or if you don't have him, I think he might be a good time to slot into a fantasy lineup. But be careful with that kind of stuff. And let's be honest here, Sam Darnold. It's actually another one of the games I'm discussing today involves a quarterback that might be questionable, and we'll find out how he does. But the carousel of quarterbacks for this Panthers team is nothing to be proud of. No great quarterbacks really coming out of there, and I think it's going to be they're not going to want to put him in any tough positions, which should keep things really short. I'm going to look towards the pass attempts under for Sam Darnold. I don't really expect them to win the game, which a lot of times if I think a team will be down a lot, they will be forced to throw it. But like I said, I think the Seahawks have done a good job of holding onto the ball. They are banked up at the running position as well, but they still can keep the ball out of the Panthers' hands. And to be honest with you, when the Panthers have the ball, I think they're going to want to keep the ball out of Sam Darnold's hands. So a couple props I do like there as far as that is concerned. Just a cautious note for people to keep an eye out for those injuries in this game. It is going to be one of those ones to be aware of, and don't be starting your lineups in fantasy too early this week when you're involving any players on these teams. But that's really what I have for you this week. And I just want to say it's just looking better and better that Geno Smith is the quarterback for the Seahawks and not another guy that plays for the Broncos. Let's ride.
Bronco country, let's ride.
By the way, it's Smith, Chuba. Let's ride.
By the way, Andrew, it's Chuba Hubbard, not Chuba.
Sorry.
Chuba is what we get when we hit a prop. I'll move on.
Sorry about that.
When we hit an NBA prop, we get a little hard.
We got to
There you go. All right. Andy surgery gave him some sense of humor.
All pre-show, I was like, don't say that. Don't say that. Say the name right. And then that happens. God.
All right, so for my first game, I obviously have the Eagles and the Giants, and to me, it's a little bit of a tough game because in terms of the Eagles side, because you can do everything against the Giants, really. The one thing that you kind of want to look at here, rain is in the forecast, a little bit of wind, so that certainly will change things a little bit. It's also interesting, I'm looking at DraftKings right now, there is not a single Giants prop up, so that's kind of interesting. From the Eagles side, look, to me, this feels like a Miles Sanders game. Everybody runs on the Giants. The Eagles are notorious at basically taking what the other team doesn't do very well and kind of exploit it. So I think Miles Sanders will see 63.5. I think that's, the way to go here. I also like Miles Sanders over 6.5 receiving yards. He has not been a receiving threat, but the last couple of weeks they have kept him in. And I think 6.5 is a very good one in terms of his prop receiving yards. Looking at it's interesting to see Jack Stoll there at 8.5. He's the number one tight end for another week or two until Dallas Goedert comes back. The Giants have been beatable when it comes to the tight end. So I think it's a lot of Miles Sanders today. There might even be a little tiny bit of value on the 14.5 rushes over for Miles Sanders at plus 105. I think the Eagles will be able to do whatever they want here when it comes to running the ball. So maybe, you don't necessarily look at the Hurts unders, but you just take advantage more of the Miles Sanders overs. And then the Giants side, look, we talked about it last week. Daniel Jones has killed the Commanders on the ground. he's also killed the Eagles on the ground. 2 years ago, he had over 90 yards rushing in one game. He had over 80 yards rushing in the other game. Of course, everybody remembers he had that long run that would have been a touchdown if not tripping over his own 2 feet. Last year, the Eagles made a little bit of an adjustment on Daniel Jones, but we saw last week Ryan Tannehill was the leading rusher for the Titans. He had over 30 yards rushing. Probably could have kept it a little bit more if they weren't trying to, throw the ball as much in the end. So obviously, depending upon the number for Daniel Jones' rushing, that's the other place to go. He's killed the Eagles on the ground. So I think Miles Sanders, Daniel Jones are the way to go here. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on a James Bradbury interception against his old team. He's going to press hard for that one. And then finally, the ultimate sleeper is maybe look at Boston Scott touchdown here. Boston Scott has killed the Giants in his career. Now, he doesn't get the ball very much, but the Eagles are very cognizant on what Boston Scott has done against the Giants in his career. So certainly if you want to sprinkle a little bit, it's going to be a little bit of a longer shot there, but maybe put like a quarter of a unit on Boston Scott to score a touchdown against the Giants because he's done so frequently in his NFL career. All right, Andy, back to you here. You have a very interesting game in terms of the Bills and the Jets. Could be some weather here as well. What's your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, we're very important, and glad you brought that up. Always got to check the weather. So I'm handicapping this game as if the weather is going to be fine, but I'm not going to place any of these bets until closer to game time, until I know exactly what's going to happen. There was a game a couple weeks ago involving the Browns. I can't remember where they were playing at, but the weather was supposed to be just absolutely horrible for game time, and then a day before the weather started changing, and then by the morning the weather was fine. So keeping an eye on the weather is just as important as knowing some of these player stats. So Jets and Bills, I have to talk about Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson cashed one of our 5% plays, and so I've had my eye on him for a while. Receiving total is 61.5. He's gone over 90 yards in 4 out of 5 games, including the last 2 games with Mike White at quarterback. And I know they're going up against the Bills, but a couple of bigger name receivers have really torched them. Amon-Ra St. Brown went over 100 yards against the Bills. 3 weeks ago, Amari Cooper went over 100 yards against the Bills. Last week, they played the Patriots, who don't have that superstar wide receiver. So if you think that Garrett Wilson is, on par with, Amari Cooper or Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe he's not there yet, but he certainly looks like he's well on his way. I think the 61.5 is pretty low, so I wouldn't be hesitant to go back to Garrett Wilson over his receiving total. I have to talk about Mike White's rushing total. He finally went over last week. At the very end of the game, he had a scramble on the 5-yard line. First time in his career he went over, and so, of course, the books moved the number up to 3.5 yards rushing. I go right back to playing him under. That's the only reason he was in hurry-up mode. He was right near the goal line. He almost scored a touchdown. But I'm going back to Mike White under rushing total. One game doesn't scare me. The Josh Allen rushing prop is always a popular one when the Bills play. He's kind of been a little inconsistent, especially with that elbow injury. But last time he played the Jets, he rushed 9 times for 86 yards. So they have his rushing total in the mid-40s. So I might be tempted to go there. But I also need to bring up Isaiah McKenzie. He's had 2 good games in a row. And what I like about players like Isaiah McKenzie is you're getting a very low total. His total is 30.5 on his receiving. He had 44 yards last week. He went well over his receiving total. And he had 96 yards the week before, well over his total. Like I said, his total is 30.5. This Jets defense is really good. So some of these secondary receivers might get some really good opportunities if they're going to try and take away Stephon Diggs, if they're going to try and stuff the run game. But I think my favorite one in this one is I'm just going to go back to Garrett Wilson over 61.5. And then I really think that Isaiah McKenzie is going to be my second favorite in this one.
Andy, do you mind if I ask how much it matters in this game when you're handicapping? Obviously, the last time these teams met, it was a big upset that took place. I know this isn't a sides show; it's a prop show. But as far as your props are concerned, does that come into account with you at all when you look at things like this? Like maybe the Jets will definitely keep the foot on the gas pedal, or the Bills if they have a big lead and stuff like that, or does that come to account for you at all?
If anything, what I take away is that there's not really a blowout potential in this game, that these two teams are even. And so you don't have to worry about that fourth quarter when, the starting running back is sitting while the backup running back is rushing for 50 yards in the fourth quarter. So as we all know, if we're taking overs in these games, we want to see these star players and the players that we bet on play all four quarters. So my biggest takeaway from the upset is that these two teams are very even. The Jets are playing well. The Bills obviously have Super Bowl aspirations, so I don't look for a blowout. I think we get four quarters from all the players.
Yeah, and I think the Jets over 1.5 touchdowns could have some value. That's very low. I mean, I think the books, and I don't know about you, Andy, if you think that the books have kind of disrespected the Jets' offense. I mean, Mike White is a lot better than Zach Wilson. If the weather's not terrible, what do you think about that Jets over 1.5 touchdowns?
It's a great one. I also think that the books know that the Bills are going to get a lot of public love. I think a lot of people, the Bills, what a great defense. Oh my gosh, what an incredible team. And yeah, they're a good team, but this is a Jets team that has a whole new life under Mike White. I didn't talk about Mike White's over passing yards, but I think he could get pretty close. The over 1.5 touchdowns is very low. To be honest, Matt, I didn't even look at that one because I was too busy interested in the best bet for the show, which I think is fascinating. I was looking at that one, but yeah, over 1.5 touchdowns, absolutely. How do they not have two?
So that's the Jets and the Bills, and as Andy said, watch the weather forecast as we get a little bit closer. All right, Andrew's picking a game that I think a lot of people were very interested in. The line when it first came out, Mr. Irrelevant -3.5 against one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. We have the Bucs and the Niners. Andrew, take it away.
I gotta say, you're great at these intros because you're always keeping people guessing on who you're actually talking about as Mr. Irrelevant and who's the superstar quarterback in this matchup. We'll find out, I guess, who comes out clutch. Obviously, one guy has a couple rings and one guy is, pretty new face for a lot of people. But let's jump into it. I mean, I think that first and foremost, a lot of people know that the Bucs have a pretty good run D. People like to look I think anyway, for me, I like to look for a lot more receiving yards against them versus rushing. And as you guys know, I've told you this year, I have really been diving into the rushing plus receiving. But in this particular instance, I'm going to just stay away from that and just look at Christian McCaffrey over on his receiving yards. He's been really, really solid with that, over on his receiving yards in 8 of his last 9 games. And really just what he does after a catch. This is the fact of the matter is he's not catching long passes. He's turning, 3 or 4 yard tosses into big, big plays. And his number really has not been caught up to as far as his, receiving yards. They're always, putting his numbers super high for the rushing. And the fact is, guys, a lot of times these days with Christian McCaffrey, and I take the rushing and receiving, I'm actually getting a lot more production on the side of the receiving end. And I realize that number just hasn't gotten any better. So I think I'll just stick with the receiving there for him. I actually am not going to play anything with Purdy when it comes to him. But you know who I am going to look at who might surprise you guys is George Kittle. It seems to me that this is kind of a buy low spot. I think that he hasn't really played well. The production level hasn't been there. Sometimes when you get a new quarterback behind center, and I've been reading a lot of quotes, a lot of times, every single, potential target or guy on offense will get interviewed, and you can kind of read between the lines. And you can kind of feel like, hey, does this guy have chemistry with the quarterback? Does he like him? Does he feel like he's going to get the ball or not? I feel like this could be a really good thing, having Purdy behind center for George Kittle. And I think that he's a guy, obviously a big target, gets open down the middle. And I think he could be someone that they could utilize big time heading into this game. So I'm looking at him quite a bit. And guys, I mean, obviously, Matt, you make your jokes there about Tom Brady. But I'm actually going to look towards his pass attempts over. It's kind of crazy how much they've been throwing the ball, no matter really what kind of football game they've been involved in, if it's been a high-scoring one, if it's been a competitive one. And let's be honest, this is a Buccaneers team, like you mentioned, they're laying points here, but they haven't really been a team that you've been expected to beat the brakes off anybody. I mean, Tom Brady said it best himself. Hey, he's just trying to keep us all entertained. And if he keeps us entertained like that and doesn't blow anybody out, he's going to keep having to throw the ball, and I think that we'll expect that again from him here this week. So I think overall it's going to be a solid game. I think that you're going to look across the board at a lot of guys for the San Francisco 49ers, and I think that it's going to be one of those games where I'm going to look towards more receptions than yards. I think, as I always say here on the show, when you've got a new quarterback, a fresh face, even though it sounds like he's been very confident in practice, confident in the huddle. I actually heard, I read a story, he was yelling at some players for not paying attention in the huddle, guys, this week. So it sounds like he's confident, with the team, and he's bringing a really good confidence to the huddle. But I still think they're not going to make anything too overcomplicated for him. So it'll be a lot of short passes. So I will look towards a lot of receptions for him. But overall in this game, I think that we do see a lot of players on the Bucs side take over. And it's a really small number on Mike Evans. Not every shop right now has a prop out there. Obviously, we wait until a little bit later on into today or even tomorrow when we start seeing every shop available have props open. But guys, Mike Evans, to a lot of people's eyes, have kind of underachieved this year. He's been up and down with his prop. I think it's going to be somewhere around 50 yards this week. And I think he can get that, especially in this matchup. I think he'll be heavily targeted. And a lot of people, I think, are talking about a guy named Rachaad White. He's someone I think we should all be considering. I wanted to get your guys' take, actually, on Rachaad White, if you guys have anything there, because I think it's one of those ride the hot hand situations that you see a guy play well, you see a guy kind of take over a position, and until the books overly adjust his number, I say we keep betting him. What do you guys think about Rachaad White?
I'll go first. I worry about tough matchup. That's the thing with me. I would look at going back to Tom Brady under his longest completion. That is hit 4 games in a row. He's not getting those long passes, and he went under again, and he gets a tough 49ers defense. They're just without Mike, besides Mike Evans, I really don't know who their long, deep threat is. It's almost like they need yards after catch, and maybe Rachaad, maybe White is somebody that can get it, but I think the matchup is too tough. I don't know what the line is going to be on White, but I just don't know if he's going to have that much success. That is one of the best defenses in the NFL right now. They seem to be getting healthy, and they seem to be hitting their peak. So for me, I would kind of pass on that one. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at White's receptions. I mean, you figure that the Niners are going to get pressure on him, and he dropped off to White a bunch last game. And I think it used to be Fournette who got all those receptions. Now I think it's Rachaad White. We're seeing a little bit less of Fournette. So I would agree on the Rachaad White receptions. And the longest under for Brady, yeah, I agree there too. I mean, if he's not getting time in the pocket to throw, then certainly he's not going to be able to throw deep. The only problem is, as Andy mentioned, is the yards after the catch. That's the one thing, Andrew, that he does have that. Occasionally, Chris Godwin can break one, or if he does get one off to Mike Evans. But yeah, Rachaad White's kind of the receiving back now. It feels like he's the guy he goes to underneath.
And that correlates with the completion prop and the pass attempt prop, right? Like when you're looking at a quarterback that isn't throwing the ball very deep, I think that. Andy, I distinctly remember you talking about this, like when we first started doing Prop It Up. It was with the Seahawks. I think it might have been, funny enough, actually, and the Chiefs. That it's basically a stat that I got on because of you, which is just strictly time of possession. So some really good teams sometimes, and sometimes it's shocking where like some really good teams, you look at the leaderboards for time of possession, and you'd think that it would be a really bad team if they don't possess the ball that much. No, they're just so good that their drives take like a minute, I remember that with the Chiefs, their offense is a little bit different this year, but it used to be like sometimes they'd run like 4 or 5 plays, and if one of them was a 40-yard bomb down the field, touchdown, and they're kicking the ball off. Where like you guys are saying that this Buccaneers team, that obviously the offense hasn't been very entertaining by any means, but it's been all those dump offs, which rack up completions left and right. Similar to those the Mac Jones prop I've been giving out on the show quite a bit. I mean, the guy hasn't thrown a ball past 10 yards since he was in college, yet he still racks up yards. So it works.
No, it's true. Mac Jones's longest completion under was last year was amazing, and then he had a little stretch where he started going over. But yeah, he doesn't throw it very deep, and if he doesn't have Jacoby Myers, that's something to look at. My final game is the Lions and the Vikings. Should be a fun one. Points, I would think. Crazy to just see all the like team stats, because you see the Lions and you're usually like, okay, they're going to be the lower numbers, but like the Vikings touchdowns on DraftKings is 2.5. The Lions is 3.5, and obviously they're juiced to the heavens, so you're not going to play that. But this could be one of those situations that when they do put up the kicker props, maybe you look at both kickers potentially on the over on their extra points, because I see a lot of points in this game, and I know that Andrew's been talking about this, and he just mentioned it with Tom Brady completions, but it's completions against the Vikings. The Vikings don't necessarily give up a ton of deep passes, but they give up a lot of underneath stuff. And if you're Jared Goff and you want to just keep, picking away at that defense, you go underneath to Amon-Ra St. Brown. You go underneath to DJ Chark. And now that they have Jamison Williams, that's going to be another weapon for them. So certainly Jared Goff's completions are out there. And, of course, Minnesota's slot corner is just awful. This should be another Amon-Ra St. Brown game. His numbers, it's so funny. His numbers are always so high, and yet he keeps hitting them. Looking at his number right now, it's 7.5 with plus 105 to the over. I mean, that may not be high enough. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown should be able to do whatever he wants against Chandon Sullivan. And then on the Minnesota side, I mean, look, it's probably going to be a Justin Jefferson type of game. You expect him to go nuts in this thing, and then you kind of see Dalvin Cook with his rushing numbers and things like that. I actually think, and I don't know about you guys about this, this feels like the DeAndre Swift coming out party again. The one thing was he showed up on the injury report yesterday. We know what the Lions have done in previous weeks where they kind of been all shrouded in mystery. And then DeAndre Swift comes out and plays very little. It's a Jamal Williams game. But if I get low enough numbers on DeAndre Swift, I think he's going to be able to do both receiving and rushing against this Vikings team. This should be a fun contest. It's going to be hard to find any unders here. I think both teams will go pretty crazy when it comes to the offense. Any thoughts on this one, Andy?
I was excited to finally see what the Swift number is, and unfortunately, it's not out yet. I mean, how low does the touchdown prop for Jamal Williams have to be before we don't take that one? The guy's unbelievable. Kudos to him. He's embraced his role, and he's fantastic at it. So, in a track meet like this, Jamal Williams to score a touchdown would be good. But Matt, 100%. This just screams Amon-Ra St. Brown for 138 yards and a touchdown. He should be fantastic. Minnesota is the worst passing defense by the numbers in the NFL over the last 3 games and over the season. So Amon-Ra St. Brown it's almost a must-add territory for bettors this weekend.
Yeah, and Andrew, you talked about completions, right? You like the completions here?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say for Swift, I think that, it's one of those things where we always say you're betting numbers, not teams, betting numbers, not players. And I think that because Williams has been so dominant, you're getting better numbers with Swift. Like Andy said, I wish we had a number kind of to look at right now, but the production, I think, is going to be there. I think that sometimes, guys, when somebody isn't the number one guy, people kind of forget to bet on them. They don't want to look towards that person anymore. They're not, getting all the targets, but it's accounted for in the number. And I think that Swift definitely could have a good one. Matt, I asked you this before, but are you still opposed to the rushing, plus receiving type of props? Or are you just doing one or the other these days now? Or what would you look for as far as that one goes?
I think it's for a guy like Swift, I'm looking rushing and receiving because I want as much help as possible. I think like you talked about with McCaffrey has just kind of become a receiving guy. I don't want anything to do with his rushing. Now, in a situation where if he goes up against the Lions, maybe I want to do both. But against, a Buccaneers team, I'm looking for receiving. So, yeah, I feel like this is one of those things where I've learned, because Andy's taught me with regards to like the NBA, when I always wanted to do points, rebounds, assists. I wanted everything. Now I kind of just want to see like the one thing. And so for Swift, I might go both, but for McCaffrey, I'm going like receiving and just instead of adding the rushing in as well. All right. So usually before the show, we put up our extra topics and then we can toss to them very cleanly. So I'm just going to do it the messy way. Hey, Andy, what outside football topic would you like to bring up in this part of the show? I'll
give you guys a prop for the UFC event tomorrow. if you guys follow UFC, you know that there are 4 Contender Series graduates, I guess is the word to use, that are fighting this weekend. And this year has not been good for them. They have traditionally lost their debuts. I think most of them are set up really, really well to win this week. And one guy, I'm telling you right now, is going to win by knockout, and that is Vinicius Salvador. You can take Vinicius Salvador to win by knockout. He was on Contender Series when he was a plus 260 underdog. We weren't sure what we were going to get from him, and he beat a guy named Shannon Ross, who is a legit fighter who probably is going to be in the UFC at some point. Salvador has incredible power. He looked fantastic, and he is fighting a guy named Daniel Da Silva, who is trash. He sucks. Like, he's bad. He's lost all 3 of his UFC fights. He's gotten finished in all 3. 2 of them he got finished in the first round. One of them he got finished to one of the worst fighters the UFC has ever seen. That's the brother of Figueiredo. Vinicius Salvador is going to knock this guy out. He got knocked out in his last fight to a guy that has no muscles and no power, and Vinicius Salvador does. This is going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone for the UFC. It's going to let them cut Daniel Da Silva because he's going to lose his 4th fight in a row, and it's going to get a Contender Series graduate a win in his debut. So Vinicius Salvador is going to win by knockout. It may be in the first round, maybe in the second round. I don't see this fight going 3 rounds, and Salvador should win. You can grab that at minus 165 at DraftKings. It's one of my favorite plays in the UFC.
It's actually minus 150 on BetMGM. I just locked it in while you said
go.
it. Andrew, any thoughts on the UFC or any NHL thoughts?
Well, I mean, as far as the UFC there, Andy, you've had a good read on just figuring out these matchups and with the younger guys. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people have to be aware of just in general with, of course, it's a prop show, like looking at the KO or TKO or even what round someone wins in and stuff like that. But a lot of times these younger guys are going to get spoon-fed some nice fights. I mean, I'll never forget I shouldn't say they're really too young, but remember when Meatball Molly, Andy, and Paddy the Batty were fighting over in the UK? I mean, they both were fighting meatballs. You know what I mean? Like, they both were set up to get wins. Yeah, and that's just something that's really important to look at. Just because somebody is young, it doesn't mean they're going to go out there and lose. A lot of the times they're put in positions to succeed. I wanted to mention this one. I already talked about it on WagerTalk today, but I also love hearing Andy's thoughts on some plays I mentioned on here on Prop It Up as well in the UFC. I like Ankalaev and Blachowicz over 2.5 rounds. We take a look at Ankalaev. He's only been finished once in his career so far. And even in that finish, it was a late sub in a fight. So that still went over 2.5 rounds here. I think it's 2 very, very durable guys. This is the toughest matchup I think Ankalaev has had so far. I expect lots of grappling in this fight. I expect kind of a lot of cautiousness from both fighters. And they both average only 3.5 significant strikes per minute. And I think we'll see even less of that in this fight in particular. So we have seen a lot of main events recently go the distance, and I expect nothing less really from this one. I think it will be, a really careful approach for both fighters to start things out. So that's my play in the UFC, and the UFC plays I've been giving out here on Prop It Up have actually been doing very well recently. We were able to cash last week, and it's a lot more fun. I'll tell you what, guys, giving out props here on the show for you guys for a fight to not go the distance, not the other way around. So this one I'm going over 2.5 rounds, though. Andy, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it should go. Ankalaev's going to try and grapple. I mean, the only reason he got a finish in his last fight was because his opponent broke his ankle. And he got credited. With a knockout. Yes, it's going to be a grappling fest. That's the easiest path to victory for Ankalaev. So yeah, I like that play a lot.
So there you go, Andrew and Andy. I'll just say real quick, college football wrapping up the regular season this weekend. You got Army, Navy. I got a couple plays for that game up on sportsmemo.com, but that's always a fun way to see that thing end the regular season. 43-9-1, the under in the last 53 games involving the service academy. So pretty crazy when you see a 32.5 out there, and it still may not be low enough. And then, of course, bowl season will be upon us next week. I mean, we're seeing a lot of opt-outs. We're seeing a lot of coaching changes. We're seeing a lot of things happening that are moving the lines. It's why I just don't lock in numbers really early, because I don't want to try and hedge and I want to go chase things. There's a lot of guys I'm sure will still announce that they're going to go to the draft, or they're going to transfer out, or coaches are going to leave. So I understand that means I'm not going to necessarily get the best number. But with bowl season, for me at least, I've been able to say, look, I'm not going to get the number I want. I just won't play the game, or I'll play a team total, or I'll play a player prop or something like that. So if you do get my bowl package, which you can find on sportsmemo.com, you're not going to see anything yet, because I'm just going to wait till, closer to the kickoff of some of these games. Weather becomes a factor, interest, you read quotes. Are the players interested? Do they seem like they want to be there? So that's why at least I wait, and there's other people who don't, but that's just, that's why we're all a little bit different. All right, we'll get to the best bet in just a moment, but I'll let the guys promote themselves one more time. Andy, what can they find on your page for this weekend on WagerTalk.com?
Well, by far the best thing that has been going for me and clients has been the 5% NFL plays. We're on a 15-4 run on those. We hit 3 of them just last week alone. When you guys know, when you're in the zone and when you're seeing the bets and the props really well, you just keep going all in on that. So I encourage everyone to go get the 5% play. You can grab a 3-day pass, or you can use the special that is still up on WagerTalk.com for $199. You get the rest of the year. That includes all NBA props, all 5% plays, all sports. We're still hitting World Cup plays. So a lot going on, but the 5% NFL play is where it's at for me.
And you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm super excited after a little bit of a slump in the NHL. I'm on a really, really good run right now. Overall, I cashed a 5% play just a couple of days ago. The 4% plays are going really well, and it's been all about volume for me, just kind of 1 or 2 plays per day, and really just nailing in on these. So today I have a couple plays I like, but tomorrow, like I said, I've already looked ahead to tomorrow's slate. I really do like it. I encourage you to grab a 3-day weekend pass, or like Andy mentioned, that special running on Wager Talk right now. Get in the rest of the year. Guys, I am number 2 right now at 2022 at Wager Talk, and after a slump, I am back up a plus 100% bankroll increase on the year. So I'm actually super proud of that, and hopefully we can end the year on a really good note. And if you guys want to join me, it's hard to diversify your portfolio and keep track of so many sports, but as of right now, I got NBA props going. I'm on an 8-3 run with college basketball. I've got NHL, I've got NFL. We're pretty diversified over here. So grab a day pass, grab a 3-day pass, or grab that pass to end the year. I would just much rather that than people grab one play from me when you can grab everything in one package.
All right, you can find Andrew and Andy on WagerTalk.com. I am on SportsMemo.com. All right, time to wrap things up here with the best bet for the show. And as always, I like to be a little creative when it comes to the best bet. We all know that the Dallas Cowboys are probably going to win on Sunday. I hope they don't, but I'm sure they will. And I think they're going to score a lot of points. And so there's a bunch of different ways to kind of look at it. You can look at the team total, or some places, including DraftKings, offer this bet. My best bet for the show is the stinking Dallas Cowboys to have over 3.5 touchdowns. This is kind of one of those bets that, I feel like they're going to score 30 points. The team total's 30.5. You look at what Dallas has done the last 5 games. They've scored 49, 28, 40, 28, and 54. And there's no look ahead here. They get the Houston Texans this weekend. Next week, they play at Jacksonville. So it's not like they're looking ahead to next week. And, Houston on the road, they gave up 30 to Miami. They gave up 24 to the Giants, 38 to the Raiders. So they're not a very good team. They're trying to lose, and Dallas is trying to win. So give me over 3.5 touchdowns for the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. And that way, if they miss extra points, it doesn't matter. Just give me 4 touchdowns. It's all that matters is the Cowboys host the Texans. That'll wrap things up for Prop It Up here. So for Andy Lang and Andrew McGinnis of WagerTalk.com, I am at Joseph SportsMemo.com. Have a profitable weekend. We will be back next Friday here on the YouTube Wager Talk channel. Thanks for watching.
Let's finish off 2022 with a bang. First, we'd like to thank everyone as a record number of you took advantage of our Thanksgiving 7-day special. We hope you enjoyed the convenience of getting your favorite handicappers plays daily during the hectic holiday weekend. And we also know that December can be a frenzied month with the holidays and all the sports in play. In the spirit of the season and due to the success of the Thanksgiving special, we are now offering a rest of the calendar year special to get every NFL, college bowl game, NBA, NHL, or any other sport your favorite handicapper releases through December 31st for only $199. The early bird really does catch the worm for this special as it starts the day you sign up. No coupon is needed, and you pay only $1.99 today or pay $1.99 in a few days. The choice is simple. Let's have a great ending to 2022.